Welcome everyone. Today with my colleagues and students from AGU, we will put education, the fourth goal of Sustainable Development Goals, on the table. The fourth goal aims to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. The COVID-19 pandemic affected higher education institutions worldwide. In response to the pandemic, education around the world transitioned to online education. In Turkey, the Higher Education Council mandated universities to immediately shift to remote education in March 2020. Since then, we have been discussing the negative consequences of online education at the time of COVID-19. However, how about the benefits of online education? What are the potentially positive legacies of it for the post-COVID-19 education environment? That said, I would like to start with my first question. What should we prioritize to benefit better from online education at the pandemic? And I would like to ask, who would like to go first?
I would like to go first.
Thank you, Muratcan.
All right. I, first of all, would like to thank you for the stage, and I feel so lucky to be able to share my opinions about a thing that directly affects me, the education. Well, to answer your question, we should first realize what the problems with the online education are. As I'm experiencing as a college student, I am aware of several problems, but I would like to only mention one about them for the time being. Especially for the higher educations, for the college students, we sometimes need to conduct laboratory experiments. And as we are at our houses and we can't use the laboratories in the school, we sometimes are not able to find the necessary equipment. For instance, my department is electrical electronics engineering, and it is really legitimate for me to not have that expensive equipment in my house. So that is a problem, and the prioritized thing should be that the providable equipments, such as, for instance, resistors, capacitors, the cheap materials, and in general, providable materials should be sent to the students, to their houses for free, so that they can benefit better from this online education and conduct their laboratory experiments, no matter the pandemic.
Thank you, Muratcan. Please go ahead.
Okay, so thank you so much for giving me the stage. And when we were talking about how can we recover better from the online education, there is this thing that apart from the students who used to use computers and technology daily, who used to interact with technology daily, we don't have a lot of problems with it. But for the elderly people, such as our professors and a lot of people who really prefer traditional teaching, are facing problems in deliverance of their concepts, and who previously believed that in class they can have like a more interactive session. And because of all these factors, a major thing comes up and draws attention is that a lot of people, even some of the students in the rural areas, which previously did not have access to education, like using technology. So we all are facing problem with how to even access the meeting, how to share more things to make our lecture more effective, which previously professors used to have like innovative things, for example, such as PowerPoint presentations, daily interaction, daily activities. So I believe that digital literacy, for example, courses for the professors and for the students who face problem in operating the technology should be given, so we can make the most out of this online classes and online education, so that we can solely focus on the lecture that is being delivered, not how are we supposed to just access it, or how are we supposed to interpret all the technology. Mm-hmm. So that's what I believe.
Thank you, Mahneen. Arooba, would you like to continue?
What I wanted to talk about was the assessment in online education, basically. So, how we can benefit from online education during this pandemic is that we can come up with new, innovative ways to change our outlook to it. Coming from the perspective of an international student, there are certain processes that international students have to go through, especially for students who opt for educational migration. They have to go through standardized tests like SATs or GRE or IELTS, maybe things like that, right? So for them, to make it easier for them, this pandemic has given us a chance to come up with new creative ways through which students can express themselves rather than just handing them out a standardized test which is for everyone. So we can come up with ways which are we can work according to their own caliber and according to their different abilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Arooba. Yes, Mahneen.
Yeah, apart from that, the reason that I mentioned, I think there are a lot other reasons that can help us, improve this thing. So I believe that when we think that we're gonna make this thing better, we need to accept that we are in a pandemic, and now right now we are going to have online education, because usually I've come across a lot of people who are just still advocating for offline education and undermining the facts and undermining the disadvantages that are going to come in our way if we opt for offline education. And apart from that, and because of that, they have like diverse focus, and instead of focusing how we could make all of the situation better, they're rather looking for escape routes such as offline education. And I do agree strongly that there are a lot of loopholes in online education, such as interaction with the students. But I think the most important thing before we start working on everything for improvement, we need to accept that we are in a pandemic, and online education is what we're going to have, and we need to solely focus that how are we going to make this better. So I think acceptance and awareness about importance of focusing on online education is really going to help us clear the pathway for the other improvements that might come our way.
Okay, thank you, Mahneen. Rakay or Anye, would you like to add anything to this discussion?
Yes, of course. I can go next. Um, so there have been many great opinions shared by our friends, and to add to that, honestly, I like the question itself a lot because the question, the way it's phrased, means that we are already benefiting from online education, and that's an important thing to note because online education has improved many aspects of our education lives, and it can be improved even further. So, apart from the opinions that have already been shared, I think one other thing that can be improved is the technological advancements and the software development that we can make the in the field of online education. So already, like for example, we're having this meeting on Zoom, and many of the educational lectures and activities are done on Zoom currently, but they are not as interactive as it can possibly be in a face-to-face environment. And that I feel like can be improved through innovative software development. And there are already softwares being used for other purposes, which are more interactive, which are more basically which represent a real life situation even closer than, for example, a Zoom meeting does. So I think that's an important note that we need to make, and that's how we can benefit even better from the situation we're in.
Benefiting from online education, I would like to maybe give this point from the point of let's say the developing countries or African countries specifically. I mean, benefiting from online education requires that the online has to be there, the internet connection and the broadband internet has to be there. So, I mean, in the case of I would say many African countries and specifically my own country, that availability of the internet is not there. The broadband internet is not available in such a way that universities, even government universities, can have they can switch completely online. like what is happening in some developed countries or even here in Turkey. So what I think, I mean, if it's with respect to the international community, what I think they can do is come up with, maybe they can form a partnership with some telecommunication companies or some I don't know, probably telecom or internet ISP provider to look for ways that they can provide broadband internet services to homes, to homes, because that is one of the major challenges. Even before coming here, I just had a random discussions with some of my friends and classmates, and they were saying the same thing with respect to the access to internet. So I know about the Learning Passport, a program that I mentioned about. The name is the Learning Passport. It's the partnership between UNICEF and Microsoft. So they are providing, this platform is providing maybe some lectures through digital means to refugees and displaced children. But again, for those refugees to be able to access that platform, they need a reliable internet connection, which is not available. So the services can be there and everything, the platform is there, but the access to it is not available. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So from my understanding, you're all agree that the pandemic helped us to change our mindset. Now we are looking at the assessment from a different perspective, or we know now that we can deliver education through different platforms. So it's not just limited to face-to-face. And this pandemic, in fact, even helped us to develop better softwares that we may not think of, but now it's kind of like pushing us to be better as a also human too. Before I move on to my second question, would you like to add anything to this? Yes, Bülent hocam.
I want to add something from the perspective of a professor. Like I learned a lot in this whole process, and I'm coming up with new lecture materials, new ways of teaching the materials that students need to learn. So it's a kind of nice transition for me. I was aiming for a flipped learning environment, for example, which means I want certain content delivery stuff to be done at home by going through some recordings. But when we meet with students, I want to do some more interactive activities. Now, even though I knew that that was something that is very critical for me in my teaching, but I wasn't like finding time to develop and come up with those materials. Now with some push from the pandemic, I'm now generating materials. I was trying to generate a material about one transform methodology that I'm using in my class. Now I will have it ready for coming up semesters. So I will let my students to reach those things whenever and wherever they want, but then I will come with them and then discuss about real life applications of those methodologies. So I think it's a good way, it's a good addition for a professor that we learn how to convert some things from the mainstream to some alternative methodologies. That's something, a nice opportunity for me as a professor.
So I will continue with my second question. In 2045, when the UN will turn 100 years old, will the access to quality or good education better off than, worse off than, or about the same as today? What I want you to do is, please raise your hands if you think that it will be better off, and I will wait for it. Thank you. So, but I'm also curious if we will have anyone who will say if you think that it will be worse off. And then here comes the third one. Please raise your hands if you think that it will be about the same. Oh, Anye, you think that it will be about the same and there will be no change?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, but again, it depends on some I'll call them preconditions if it has to change. But for now, considering the way things are, if things don't change, the factors that influence, I mean, access to quality education as we know them today, it might probably be the same. So I'm looking at maybe the institution itself. I'm looking at what is being taught to students. Is it preparing the students for the job market? Is it like if the students leave the university, can they easily get a job once they get into the job market? Is a college degree still necessary? I mean, those are some of the questions that is being posed. But I mean, I think that it would probably remain the same if those factors don't change. Like if those questions are not asked, and so that they can drift away from the conventional way that we know it today to more productive ways of delivering education to students.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well,
yeah.
Anye, in fact, I would like to keep you here because the others said that it will be better. And since you said it might be the same, I'd like to start with you, and I would like to ask, then can you tell us what you want to see in the year 2045 in one word to make that change happen?
Maybe I would love to see, I don't know, maybe effective, with respect to the countries, maybe an effective leadership and effective governance in terms of the ministries that have the responsibility to, structure the educational system. So
in fact, this question I would like to ask all of you. So can you name in one word? Can you tell us what you want to see in the year 2045 so that it will be better off? Since you've already said that, yes, it will be better off, but I want to hear that one word. How can we make it better? And who would like to go first?
In one word, say economy, and let me tell you why right now. Since the topic here is quality education, I always relate this topic to technology, and technology has been improving, and the improvement in technology is exponential. So I will now connect this to why. Mm-hmm. We are talking about 25 years from now. And even in my imagination, it is hard to say, okay, this technology will come into the education area and help students in this way or that way. So as long as technology is improving, the quality education will be improving. Even we might not need instructors. Sorry, Bülent hocam, but in the upcoming years, even in this century, we now have good internet connection. We can reach the information ourselves. As long as we know what to do, we can search for it from the open sources. So because of this, I believe that in the year 2045, 25 years from now, the educations will be way better than today. And the economic thing is that in the 2045, I would like to see economic equality between the education institutions, because currently I see that even in Turkey, some cities in some schools in some cities don't have appropriate facilities or don't have real good teachers for their students. I also relate this to economy, and I would like to see the equal economy between the education institutions so that everybody, every individual, no matter where they are, could reach the information in equal way.
Another word, can give me another word. Yes, Bülent Hocam.
I think the future, if we collaborate and cooperate between nations, if we come up with institutions that will force people or nations or leaders to collaborate and cooperate, then we will have a really better educational infrastructure. So, for example, we have institutions like UNICEF, for example, or IMF, or those kind of things. I want to see collaboration among nations more without any kind of benefit expectations. So that's the critical thing. I really believe in sincerity. If we sincerely help each other among nations, if we start to help each other without any expectations, like I will benefit from their minds, I will benefit from their human resources, I will benefit from their, let's say, all these financial status, then we will start collaborating and cooperating. In terms of education, we might help each other without waiting for anything to return back, but it will be something that will be beneficial for that nation. If I can help one person like that, then I feel like I succeeded in this life. Otherwise, it becomes like I'm struggling for my own benefits, which is the main idea about international politics right now. I know it. Real politics means benefit. Real politics means interests. I hate that idea of approaching each other with the feeling of interest. When we change our minds from interest-based relationship, then benefiting each other, like helping each other, cooperating with each other, then things will change on the world. If we don't do it, we will kill each other. We will do bad things to each other. So I couldn't put it very elegantly, but that's what I think.
So from what I understand, Bülent Hocam, you are in simpler words, you're basically saying that not just for the personal benefit, but also for the benefit of human being or our society. Thank you.
Exactly. But this kind of ideology is not limited to me. It should be extended to the leaders, to the extended to the nations.
Who would like to go next? You are welcome to raise your hand. Yes, Arooba. What will be your word?
Okay, so my word would be impartiality. And to explain why I chose this word, I would like to share a fact that the UN has projected that by the year before the pandemic, actually, the UN projected that by the year 2030, there would be 200 million children who would be out of school, and there would be 60% of young people who would only complete their upper secondary education. Now, to keep this fact in mind, what this has done is the pandemic has obviously somewhat exacerbated these numbers. But the advantage that we have here is that it has sort of put the educational policies of different countries and the role of UN in the limelight, in the sense that it has given the chance for self-reflection to show what type of policies should be adopted to deal with such a crisis, so that the quality of education is not undermined and that the education is provided to children all worldwide according to the needs of the country. There might be some countries which would need more resources, which would need more economic or monetary resources, and some countries might need more resources in the sense that they would have more trained educators, right? So what this has done is given the UN to sort of take on the look of impartiality and to look at each country with sort of its own needs and to help them accordingly. Thank you.
Rakay, would you like to go next?
All right, sure. So the word that I was thinking of as a vision for 2045, as something that I would like to see in 2045, and something that I'm hoping would be a lot more of when the UN is 100 years old, is free education. Free being the key word here. So according to the UN's own targets that they hope to fulfill by the year 2030, free primary and secondary education is the first target. So leading on from that, already up until this point, the UN has made a lot of progress in their goal for access to quality education. According to them, the amount of people who are getting quality education, the percentage of especially youth, has increased by a lot over the last 20 years. However, so now that more people are getting the access to education, what is another thing that might stop them from completing their degrees, from getting the quality education that they want to? From my perspective as an international student as well, I've seen a lot of my own fellow students go through the struggle of finances. And for primary and secondary education, I feel it's even more important to have free education, because those are the years where a person learns the basics of literacy, where reading and writing skills, where basic concepts are taught to students. However, even higher education, some countries can be influenced by the UN to implement free education policies. Now, as an example, we have Germany, which has free education, and the benefit to that, obviously, the government is incurring some costs, but as a benefit, they have increased immigration. They have increased economic opportunity for all the students who are graduating. Their own economies, they benefit from it, because all the graduates, they work for their companies, and all of these benefits can be a motivating factor for any other country who wants to go completely free, especially in public universities. I feel the issue here, the problem, might be some sort of balance, but I think the UN especially can educate the countries, educate their leaders more on how to accomplish this goal.
Would you like to come with your word, Anye?
Okay. I mean, probably I said something about governance, but maybe or let me just say maybe diversity again. Looking at diversity also. If I'm to elaborate on the what I first of all said concerning governance, the thing is, what the ministries, because let's look at it like nationally in respect to the countries, there are ministries of education that run these educational facilities, not just they don't run in space. So they have ways, they have a curriculum that they set up. So if the curriculum is not like within the STEM extractions, things like science, technology, engineering, and math, those are some of the biggest fields that help give students the skills to be able to solve problems when they leave the university. So if those in leadership do not concentrate on those STEM fields, then they are just graduating students with a bunch of degrees that they cannot solve the real life problems, and that will not be effective in my opinion. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
In fact, I would like to also give the floor to my colleague, Tuba Hocam, if you would like to also make any comments here.
All right, thank you for this opportunity. I also kind of find when I say this word, when I think about this word, like equity in education, and then when I look at it, like it all covers kind of the things that we have discussed. But I also want to come up with say parental involvement, because it's all important, like making the connection between we kind of have seen the research like if parents are involved in students' education, they have better grades and they have better results. So parental involvement can be one of the things that we can see like increasing. And also, and this can start from like very primary education to even sometimes in higher education. So we may kind of discuss the things, how they can be involved. So and like the word that I give is equity in education.
Thank you. Okay, I think Mahneen, you might be the next one that we haven't heard from about this one word.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much. For the first, for the one word, it was actually hard to come up with just a single word explaining all my concept. But to go with, I would say effective resource allocation by the governments. And by that, to explain, I've heard all of your thoughts, and you all posed like really good solutions and really good ideas where you want UN to be. So I think the most important thing is the better allocation of funds by government for education, because this is going to be a pathway to all the goals of SDG. I won't be touching all the goals, but I would be definitely talking about the direct and indirect relation between all these goals. So as an economics student, and I've studied economics for 5 years in my life now, and I can fairly derive that education can solely be can be a solution to eradicate all the problems. For example, first SDG goal that says no poverty. So when education is going to be there, people are going to be earning money, which means they're going to be able to afford their food and standard of living, which is not going to only eradicate poverty. It's also going to help their second goal, which says zero hunger. And apart from that, these are some things that are indirectly related, and these come as the long-term benefits of education. So as the short-term and direct relation, we have United Nations focuses on all the concern as social problems as well, which means that with education, we will be better able to handle gender inequality. We'll be better able to handle sustainable use of resources. We'll be able to handle healthcare problems, because people will be you will be having like a good healthy environment, which will prevent them getting from sick. And apart from that, major thing that the problem we're facing right now is the entire world is sinking in Great Depression. So if government uses the resources effectively, and they have like more resources allocated to education, this is going to help prevent the Great Depression that is just coming all over us. With a learned workforce, with more people, there has been a recession, and more people starting their industries, more people doing their jobs, more people producing their goods, more people providing services. This is going to help us boost the economic growth, which is going to prevent us from any problem that we might face. And because of that, we need to realize that how these all of things are linked together, and how the basic thing that you need to start is by educating people.
Mahneen, if I continue with what you said, we heard, what do you want to see in the year 2045? And Mahneen, you gave us a really, in fact, a good point there, like effective allocation of funds. Then my question to you, Mahneen, will be, how can global cooperation, and in particular the UN, better help manage these challenges? I would like to continue with you, and then I will give the floor to your colleagues.
All right. For this global cooperation, when I hear this word, it means how everyone can work together, how all the countries can work together for this. So I think basically all the education for the problem here is that the education problem is mostly prominent in underdeveloped countries. And for the underdeveloped countries, we cannot do it. I belong from Pakistan. We cannot all do it alone. We cannot all do it by ourselves. We need help. We need help from the people who are expert in education. For example, North Korea, who has 100% literacy rate. Finland has 100% literacy rate. And apart from that, there are a lot of other countries that have like good literacy rate. So we want, not only in terms, as I mentioned before, in terms of better allocation of funds, not only we need money. Money cannot just only help us have better education. We need good teachers for underdeveloped countries. We need good schools. We need to actually, literally build schools in the areas that not, the schools are not there. And this actually, and the allocation of funds just solely doesn't talk about money. It talks about how our interest and the focus of government should also be directed towards education. So all the countries can help us. And as an example from UN, I was researching actually, and I came across South Sudan, which has like in which UN enforced that 10% of the government's budget should be allocated to education. So I think help from all of the countries in terms of good teachers, in terms of facilities, in terms of helping build schools, in terms of, because we have USAID in Pakistan, which from America, they help us with all the schools, they help us with the problems that we face. So I believe that if we all work together and we help and we focus on education solely, we can help, have good education.
Thank you, Mahneen. I also would like to ask the others. So how can global cooperation, and in particular the UN, better have managed the challenges that you have mentioned, like how we can have free education with the help of United Nations or with the help of global corporations?
Okay, so for that, of course, we have to realize what the challenges are, and the challenges in getting, like, the difficulties that countries usually will face is the simple question: if education will free, then who will pay for the schools, who will pay for the teachers, and who will handle the entire system? And of course, that is a problem. But according to the research that I've done before I came here, America has about $91 billion in funds allocated towards financial aid. Now, financial aid is something given to students who are in need of or they cannot pay for their tuition. So, but that need specifically only exists because there is a tuition fee in the first place. So if you remove the tuition fee, then you can use, if not all, then part of the funding that you're providing for financial aid into the costs that you will incur once the education is free. Mm-hmm. So steps like these are this is just one example of many steps that can be taken by the countries all around the world. And also, one important factor that I considered was the fact that once it becomes the norm, then it will be much easier to accept free education for the countries. Like, for example, right now, the majority does not have free education. But once the majority has free education, it becomes the norm. For others to follow along, it will be much, much easier. So all it takes is just a few countries to step up and bring the change, and that will be the motivating factor for others to follow as well.
Oh, Muratcan, yes, you're welcome to continue.
All right, thank you. Before I start, I appreciate all the dreams this group has for the year 2045. They're all great, especially Rakay said free education. What a great idea that is, right? And I said economic equality between education institutions, impartiality, and so on. And one thing we realize when we are discussing is that all these dreams are connecting to the government, I believe. So what kind of obstacles could government produce? And Bülent Hoca mentioned something about it, actually. Sometimes politics think for interest. They think about money, taking money to their sides. And this idea brings me to the word corruption, actually. As long as we don't have corruption in the government, managements, politicians are people like, politicians are helpful people. As long as politicians are helpful people, we may get closer to achieving these dreams, like free education. Money is required for it, right? But if you have corruption, if the money flows somewhere unexpected, how can it happen? It can't. So the obstacle here is management. So how could particularly UN tackle these obstacles? with actually they're trying to tackle those obstacles by trying to hear our opinions about it. So we are the future of the world, and they're getting our opinions on the critical issues that world are facing. And in this case, it's education. They are now getting our opinions, ideas, and they may inform politics or managers about, okay, the future of the world thinks like this. What about you, right? So I believe that a UN could try to be the connection between the future and the politics, the managers. Thank you.
I'm curious to hear how can global cooperation can help to build better leadership around the world.
Here, I can add one thing. It might sound weird to you, but global cooperation, I'm not sure if they are strong enough to select and look at people in the eye and think, okay, this guy can manage the money equally and don't steal anything from the government, and try to do everything possible to create equal opportunities for every individual on Earth. So I'm not sure if UN is able to do it, but maybe starting from now, they may educate the politicians or the future politicians to, from the perspective of ethics. So ethics basically summarizes everything here. So UN should make people aware about the management ethics. So that's what I think.
Thank you, Muratcan. Anye, that was your word. Would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, Hojam. I mean, I strongly agree with Muratcan, Hojam, for the points. I mean, those points, those are the point on leadership, which is, I mean, is directly related to the education and to the resources that the schools have, and maybe the curriculum that is being taught. I mean, if you look at, for instance, again, I would like to maybe specify a little bit developing countries, African countries. You see, the richest people in some of these countries are the ministers, the politicians, and you ask them, how did they make their money? You go to the United States, for instance, who is the richest person, maybe Bill Gates or whatsoever. They have something to show for it, software development. They went through the educational system and they produced the service, they produce a solution for a problem. So you have a bigger problem like that, and you say, what can be done? The thing is, at the center of it is leadership. I think it was Mahneen mentioned two countries, I think South Korea and Finland. Those are some of the countries that have got it right. I mean, you look at the Asian tigers. These are countries that have developed professionals. After the 4 years in the university, they're able to get into the job market and start creating solutions for problems. I mean, these are some of the UN, as Muratcan rightly said, the UN can, again, ethically and propose some of those solutions to developing countries. These are things that people have done and it has worked. Again, it's not just, you're not just going to copy everything directly, but there are very important things that you can copy and implement in your own country. These are countries that are doing it and it's working. So, I mean, if the UN is at a position that they can encourage some of these countries to emulate what these other countries are doing, that would be a good thing. Yeah.
So I think that UN is a safe platform for global cooperation, since it's a neutral setting for all the countries to come together. How would that better help manage these challenges? Is through recognizing the weaknesses of the countries which are within the United Nations. For example, political instability or gender inequality, or the lack of infrastructure in the countries, or maybe the simple cultural or religious ramification that might be experienced by the UN when they try to put these policies into to work, right? So it's a proper platform for global cooperation, since all of these weaknesses for each of these countries can be discussed, and there can be solutions given, and there can be policies made according to these these sort of weaknesses or setbacks, and modified according to them through progressive solutions, which can then be adopted by each of the country accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one more question that I would like to ask. So let's say we have the UN Secretary General in this Zoom meeting. So what would you advise the UN Secretary General to do to address the challenges that we have been talking about for at least, I'll say, 45 minutes? Anye, would you like to go first?
If I were to propose something, I would say, well, I think like the point already mentioned about the UNICEF and the collaboration, that is something that an organ of the UN is doing. If initiative like the learning passport, if they could come up with similar initiatives like that, that would be a great thing. But also, I know these are organizations that maybe depend on funding from some of these countries. They themselves cannot really implement things on the ground if the government of the country is not does not permit or have a good institution where they can just come and support. So I think one of the most important things should be to look for a way to help some of these governments to build strong educational systems that can work for the country, and they can now collaborate through their different organs, UNICEF and the others organization to help. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anye. Muratcan?
Okay, thank you. From the beginning of this meeting, we've been brainstorming about the ideas that could be implemented, but sometimes it's hard to explain something just by speaking. So what would I advise to UN General Secretary is that I want them to create a group of people, the responsible people, and send individuals to the countries and have them see the situation with their own eyes. So I believe that when they see the differences, the gap between, let's say, good cities and poor cities from the point of education, they will realize what you're trying to say better with the visual representation. So that is simply what I would advise to them. Just create a group and see the situation with your own bare eyes.
Thank you, Muratcan. Mahneen?
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, firstly, I'm really, really happy to have UN Secretary here, so I'll be like extremely happy. And after that, I think, you know, I have really different idea for what I would say to him or her, I don't know. But the thing is that we talk about equality, we talk about a lot of things, and we talk about better education, free education to everyone. So how can that happen when development takes place when the country is stable? UN has been handling a lot of unsolved and disputed cases about territories of all the countries. There are a lot of countries that they're still being bombed. A lot of countries they're still struggling just to be stable. So firstly, the first step is to solve their disputes, to actively solve their disputes. We look at UN as a supreme authority to just solve the cases. And if they don't have like peace talks between the countries, if they don't solve anything about the disputes that the both countries have, we cannot really look into education, because when there's like a bomb coming to your head, you don't think about education, you think about saving your life. So I think the thing, like the primary focus and the priority of the UN should be to look at the countries who are struggling. For example, Syria, and for example, Kashmir in Pakistan. We cannot grow out of this unless there is, we have, like, we don't have we're not in a state of war. We're not afraid of anything. So first focus should be to have like peace talks with the country, to stop unfair bombing, to stop disputes, and then we can all work together when we'll be having like a stable economy. We'll be having like people who are not scared. We can actively look into education. So, and to reiterate their thing for the equality and for the education for all. It doesn't say education for countries, just who are safe and who don't have problems. So education for all. First, look at these things, and then we can collectively, as global cooperation, try help from developed countries. We can definitely solve this problem.
Thank you, Mahneen. Anye?
Thank you. I just wanted to add one point with respect to what Mahneen just said. She just talked about the conflict zones and all of that. If there is a conflict, the students cannot go to school. You go to Africa, you look at the sub-Saharan Africa, you can count the number of conflicts that are in the different countries. Specifically, my own country, there's a conflict going on now. Students are being kidnapped, students are being killed, massacred in the schools for going to school. They're just for going to school. So you see, in that atmosphere, education cannot go on. Nothing can happen. All the fancy things cannot happen. So that zone where there has to be no conflict, or maybe solve the armed conflict, has to be implemented. Then good education can happen. Thank you. Yeah.
Elif Hocam, I wanna add one thing. If the Secretary General is here, I would recommend him and his management team that they should increase their visibility in the cities. They should increase their goals. They should increase the awareness about UN, their goals. Like there's a huge perception that UN cannot do anything other than putting people together and just talk. It has to be more. It has to have more power. But I don't know. Maybe it's the structure that UN has. Maybe it's not the best model that UN has right now. I don't think it's a huge free institution that can act really more active on the field. As Muratcan said, like have people, like there is one UN university on the world. It's in Japan. Maybe just come up with UN universities trying to implement the idea of SDGs, like working on SDGs and coming up with an international point of view. Why not coming up with those institutions, and even like student clubs, even like some NGOs, like working for the goals that has been put forward. So I believe it's very critical for UN to be more active on the field, more powerful on the field, and hopefully we will benefit more from UN, not as it is right now. We should see more of activities coming from UN like that.
Tuba.
Thank you. So going back to like Muratcan and Bülent, which I might like to say, so it's all about data driven. So like looking at everything and then what we need. So support like for teacher enrollment, teacher professional development, regulation. So what country needs what kind of support, we can do that. And also, so like we all know that there is like a global movement, like there are lots of immigrants and refugees. And also we kind of need to increase the perspective, like awareness of multiculturalism. So not every country or every people is open to having people like multicultural, like diversity. So we need to kind of develop something to all so that they can be aware and they can accept everyone and then help them, and so to increase the perception of multiculturalism, open to everyone and diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Welcome. Rakay or Arooba, would you like to add anything?
As for me, I would just like to agree wholeheartedly to what Bülent said. That, according to me, is also something that the UN can do immediately to improve both themselves and us as well. So, for example, a friend of mine just said that we see towards the UN as the authority here. It's like a superhero for us. But for me as a person and also as a student, I do not know where this superhero authority is because I don't have any access to it personally. I do not know what I can trust them with. I do not know what their progress has been in the last 10 years or in the past decades. So access to that information and also access some kind of contact points, as Professor said before, in the cities for both civilians and politicians should make both the UN benefit from it and us. Even for them, this will be a possibility for more data, more awareness about what the situation actually is, as Muratcan said, being more visual with the situation in the countries. I think that is what I would suggest to the Secretary General as well.
Thank you. Arooba?
Okay, so to add to what everybody was saying, that I would ask the Secretary General to sort of recognize the problems and the solutions that can be done according to those problems, and to take into account what the people actually want to be done about the educational problems specifically in their areas, right? So in more democratic countries, you can, for example, hold referendums, right, to get to know what the people actually would like. And in more authoritative countries, what you can do is you can assert the role of the UN and sort of I don't want to use the word pressurize, but sort of ask them to sort of assess this imperative issue and to talk about it, because it is important, it is highly significant, like Mahneen said, for people to be educated to move on to more progress and development. Thank you.
Thank you, Arooba. And I also would like to say something to them, which is, please continue listening to you. All of you shared wonderful insights. You've done it with your own backgrounds, with your own experience. So today we had an opportunity to listen, not only the, I will say, the experience of Turkish people, but also we have students from Pakistan and students from Cameroon. And also we are not just from one city in Turkey, but from all around the Turkey. So I would like to thank you all for your active contribution. And also I would like to ask you all if you would like to add anything to this rich conversation. Yes, Muratcan.
I also want to thank you all because it was a really great experience for me to meet with all these amazing people, and 8 people already heard about this conversation. Hopefully, the number of people who heard our opinions, heard our conversation about this important topic will be high and be higher every day. And hopefully also a responsible person from United Nations will value what we think.
Thank you so much, Muratcan. So again, thank you all so much.